Welcome back to RFL. We turn now to the race for City Hall, and with just 18 days left to convince the voters of New York City to vote for them in the primary, we are offering each of the candidates a little bit of free advice. Our strategy session begins now. Latest polling shows de Blasio and Quinn tied for first. Also, it shows Weiner and Liu falling off the cliff, so we're not even going to deal with those guys. So let's start with the erstwhile frontrunner, Bill de Blasio. What does he need to do to maintain his lead, if there is one, and improve his position? But let me start by asking if we think that's accurate, that Bill de Blasio is the leader right now.
I mean, these things are driven by momentum and trends, and it's clear that both de Blasio and Thompson have been trending up over the last couple of weeks. Quinn continues to trend down. Our information has that among likely voters, those numbers are even more consistent. Billy and Bill, and less for Christine, because she does worse among likely voters. More progressive electorate.
Dominic, de Blasio has been trying to paint himself as the progressive candidate. Is that where we go with this? Is continue doing that and run that all the way to the primary?
If you're de Blasio right now, you're going, please, 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 please let Election Day get here as soon as possible. Please, while the polls are still showing me on top. I have to give de Blasio credit for something. You know, private conversations, I normally don't reveal them, but when I ran into him about a month ago, my whole attitude was like, Bill, what are you doing? Why are you running for mayor? You're not going to win. And he said to me, watch. And I was like, yeah, okay. I got a bridge to sell you as well. Well, guess what? He was right, and apparently I was wrong. I mean, the guy, notice I said apparently. The guy's doing okay. If you're Bill de Blasio, you keep pumping your son. They have a video, it's online. I couldn't believe what I was watching last night. The headline said, my dad is cool as a white man.
No, he's not a boring white guy.
Not a boring white guy, right.
It's a great video. Great video.
But it's like, if I ever go into politics, I mean, is that the new thing? Use your family for full momentum?
That's not a new thing.
I think that's been going on since day one.
I believe so. I believe we can find historical examples.
To this level? But anyway, in the video, the daughter, Dante standing there with the fro, and the daughter and the African-American wife, and Bill standing in the background. And so if you're de Blasio, you keep working that.
Yes, it's a great video. His daughter comes off completely authentic and real, and goes off into a fairly long monologue for a young woman, fairly eloquent on
but that's a father.
Why her dad
I'm sure my daughter could say nice things about me too.
I would hope so. I think she can. I have no doubt, in fact. There was a moment when de Blasio got on somewhat after this introduction, said, "Hi, I'm not a boring white guy," and it was somewhat depreciating, and it was somewhat
his campaign
funny.
Put this out. His own campaign.
We'll see. He's gotten a lot of mileage. You mentioned hospital closures as a potential issue. He certainly got a lot of mileage out of it, even getting arrested. Is that enough? Is that enough to get him to the primary?
No, it's not. What it was enough to do was break through the clutter and get attention drawn to his candidacy when people were just starting to turn attention to the race. I think some of the challenge for him over the next couple of weeks is to continue to grow into appearing mayoral. And I think there's a little bit of a transition from being arrested to appearing mayoral, but it feels like he might be on track to do that.
Okay, next candidate up is Christine Quinn. She's been polling strongly for much of the race, but in the last few polls, she's either been behind de Blasio or right up even with him. What does Christine Quinn need to do to cross the finish line and hopefully make it to, for her campaign, make it to the runoff? And Scott from the Anybody But Quinn campaign, dropping out of the race is not an acceptable answer. So.
It's not, but it's advice that we continue to offer nevertheless.
But if you were working for Christine Quinn, what would you say? How does she get the mojo back?
I mean, obviously the big problem with the speaker is the continued sense that she's inauthentic on camera. And the camera doesn't lie. You know this better than most, Andrew. It kind of smells when you're lacking personal integrity.
I'm just hoping nobody notices.
No. It's clear that you've got them all hoodwinked, Andrew. And I don't think Christine does. And I think the more she's on air, and the problem over the next 18 days, if you're inorganic, if you're not comfortable in your own skin, if you're trying to read those polls and stop the bleeding, if you're afraid you're losing, it's really hard when you've been an operative like Christine Quinn to be in the moment and not be aware constantly of who you are and how you're behaving, and that's a real problem for her.
She has the advantage in a way that she hasn't had in a while, in that the bullseye's not on her the way it had been for much of this race. I mean, go back to the mayoral debate that we saw this week, and everybody was focused on de Blasio. Dom, how much of a benefit is that for Christine Quinn right now? And
well, it's a great benefit for any candidate to not have that bullseye on them and be under attack, because we're gonna. I continue to argue we're gonna find out in the next week or so what Bill de Blasio is made of, because you're gonna see Christine Quinn and Bill Thompson. They're gonna throw everything at him and the kitchen sink. Excuse me. And that quiet Bill Thompson, who's reserved and mild-mannered, watch what's going to happen. He may still be quiet and mild-mannered, but you're already seeing it, where they demanded that de Blasio pull down his stop and frisk ad. Of course, de Blasio's not going to do that, but you're going to see them go after de Blasio. If you're Christine Quinn, and I think Scott set this up in a fantastic way, a Democratic primary in New York City that's far left-leaning is not really, it doesn't play to her to begin with. Because these are voters that are going to say, you're the lady that gave us Bloomberg 3. She's taking more of a hit for Bloomberg 3 than Bloomberg is.
We knew that she was going to vote for the Inspector General on the stop and frisk bills yesterday, and we knew that she was going to vote against the bias lawsuit, they're making it easier to sue. Does that hurt her? And if so, how badly does that hurt her? Since it would seem as though she'd be the most out of step on stop and frisk among the three leaders.
And she's completely vulnerable on these issues. She's vulnerable on paid sick leave. She's vulnerable on decent wages for folks. She's vulnerable on a lot of those core basic issues. You've had 9 public hospitals close under her watch, and now she's promising people there won't be a 10th. It just doesn't smell real.
All right.
And then when you add, I'm sorry, Andrew, when you add that she was publicly pushing Ray Kelly as her police commissioner, that doesn't play well either. That's why she's sort of like, you know.
But if the spotlight's on de Blasio, does that message get through? Does that reminder of those positions that she's vulnerable on, does that get through to voters?
Well, I mean, his job is to constantly remind people of the true policy differences between them.
All right, final of our 3 candidates that we're focusing on is Bill Thompson. Thompson and de Blasio were neck and neck in the polls up until last week when de Blasio pulled ahead. So what does Thompson do to distinguish himself, and how much of this has to be personality? Because he's always so mild-mannered. Is that the first suggestion, to come out of the shell a little bit?
Well, one could argue actually quite the opposite. And if you listen to the Thompson folks, they'll tell you their job is not to remake Billy Thompson. They think they got the right candidate and the right voice at the right time. And if de Blasio and Quinn continue to snipe at each other, one could argue that he looks like the reasonable voice in the crowd. They've never tried to make Billy Thompson something different than he is, but he typically closes very well in a race where he has real demographic advantages that haven't necessarily shown itself in the polls we're seeing.
And here's a key factor that's been pretty quiet, because he's a television personality now. And I understand he's a polarizing figure, but the Reverend Al Sharpton. Sharpton could answer almost all of Thompson's problems, because, number one, they're very close. But Sharpton's been flirting with de Blasio and Thompson. If Thompson can pull out that Sharpton endorsement, Sharpton's going to go on a tour around the city. He can energize the vote in a way that Bill Thompson could not on his best day.
Thompson's also got a lot of institutional support, you know, labor and other organizations. How critical would that be to get the vote out there to the true blue Democrats who vote on primary day?
The UFT is supporting Bill Thompson. They're all in. 1199 is supporting Bill de Blasio. They're all in.
And that makes a difference. The
Hotel Trades Council is supporting Christine Quinn. They're all in. The big labor unions are all in different camps.
Okay.
So to some extent, election day is going to be their ability to rule out their own political operations and show folks what they can do.
Put money on it. Who are the 2 who make it to the runoff, assuming there is a runoff?
It's de Blasio Thompson.
That's a tough one. I'm not willing to say yet. He's the expert that makes an awful lot of money for doing the good things that he does. And so if Scott says it, maybe I should drink some of that Kool-Aid too. but I'm not exactly sure at this point.
Rich, thanks for being patient as we focus on the Democrats. We're going to get to your party in just a second. Sure. Going to take a quick break. The race for City Hall continues right after this. When we come back, we'll introduce you to the man who created the DOE Fund, a transitional work program that helps homeless and formerly incarcerated people get back on their feet. His name is George McDonald, and oh, by the way, he's running for mayor on the Republican line, but can he make it to City Hall? That plus our strategy session for the Republican candidates is up next.